What's going on, guys? This is Damien from The Lookout, and we're continuing the road to nets with yellow. Yes, it's time to take a look at one of the most versatile toolbox colors in the game. But before we begin this video, huge shout out to the Coffee Club, our lovely patrons. These are our $2 and up patrons. They buy us coffee, they keep this crazy content grinding machine going. And guys, thank you so much for this. If you wish to join the Coffee Club, link to our Patreon is in the description below. And yeah, I think that's about everything. Roll the video! As with all of our videos, let's start with the breakdown. So it's time to get ready for nets. We'll talk about which decks to play, some rogue options, I'll go over some tech cards that you should be aware of and prepare for, or use, and we'll just wrap it up with a summary. Let's go! Let's start with a big question. Should you even play yellow? Is yellow good in the current meta? Yes, yellow is in a great position. It's really in a great position at the moment. It's not as insane as red or black, but it's in a really good position compared to some other colors. What does yellow have going for it? Well, you have the ability to rest your opponent's cards. That's unique to yellow. You have access to counter for free energy, which is also unique to yellow, not the counter, but the free energy part, which is a lot of the times just an I win button. You have the best generic cards in the game. Yellow flat out has the best generic cards in the entire game. And finally, yellow Saiyans are just amazing. Yellow Saiyans are simply incredible. Let's start by checking out some leaders. Let's start with some data. So here are the highest ranked yellow leaders across the last two metagames, BT21 and BT22. We're not talking about BT20. You know what happened during the BT20 days. So, Majin Vegeta, 17 tops, Ape-Ku with 11, Frieza Swap with 6, and Spirit Bomb with 4. One important thing to note is that Spirit Bomb and Majin Vegeta got hit on the ban list. They weren't banned, but duo was limited to 1, and yes, it's a lot of power gone from the deck. But we are still considering them for the upcoming finals. We need to talk about this thing. So there is one new arrival, which is tier 1. Yeah, there are two new arrivals, but this is the one that actually matters. So UI Goku. We don't have any data for this leader from big official events. We had some local events like Fantasy Kingdoms, Hours, Scrub Games. We all allow BT23 proxies. That's not a lot of data there, but we'll just use our testing to evaluate this one. Our testing and like some research that we did. So yeah, UI Goku is a contender. Let's very briefly mention the gatekeepers. These are the big bosses of the event. You need to be able to beat some of them, because we are expecting them to be the highest represented leaders from each color. So Pen Reboot, UI Goku, luckily we're talking about yellow today, Gogeta, Green Gohan, and Mechikabura. So in order to do well at the finals, at nets, your deck needs to be able to beat at least a few of these consistently. At least a few of these. If you can beat like 2 of these, that's awesome. If you can beat 3, you're just golden. So yeah, please keep that in mind. Now it's time to talk about the leaders to play. We're gonna break them down into 3 categories: meta, competitive, and rogue. Let's start with meta leaders, the expected best leaders in the format. Yellow U7 Goku. Yes, by far the best yellow deck in the game, and the only meta deck in this category. Yeah, so I was very much on the fence with this one, but there are builds which are just crazy. So what do you get with this Goku? You get amazing draw power in the form of filtering. You're not really plussing that often. You're kind of exchanging 2 cards to draw 2 cards. So you're filtering, but you're going through your deck like crazy. You have an absurd amount of Z energy, just absurd amount of Z energy, which you can use to play your Z extra cards. You have multiple ways to burn your opponent. You can either do this with a 4-drop or with the boss monster. Speaking of which, you have an amazing boss monster. The boss monster is insane, especially now when charismatic is banned. Limited to one, sure. So, boss monster, phenomenal. You can rest cards ignoring barrier with your leader's ability, which is just like, did it really need to rest ignoring barrier? And you have some great SCR choices. I still think that Victory Strike is bait, that it's not good, but you have some other amazing SCR choices. And from testing, from research, from going over various deck builds, yeah, this is by far the best yellow deck in the game at the moment. Now let's talk about competitive leaders, your second best choice. Let's start with one of my favorites, Apeku. I love Apeku. Rest everything when you attack and then you just hide behind a wall of blockers. So what do you get with Apeku? You get great draw power. Like he draws a lot. So it's not like mind-blowing, super high draw power, but you get great draw power with this one. You get the ability to rest everything. Yeah, you can just swing with it and rest everything. Not energies though. You also get massive boards. Apeku has incredible boards. Incredible boards considering that it only plays like 2 energy. Plus he has board buffs in the form of Bulma, which gives Goku's plus 5k, and you have the Kamehameha Z extra card, which also gives Goku's plus 5k, so that's plus 10 to your big board of Goku's. Really, really cool. You can play on only 2 energy. This is huge. Apeku is one of rare decks which can play on only 2 energy for the entire game. And this is big, because when you're fighting against decks which have some scary boss monsters, like Gohan for example, these boss monsters often require that the opponent has 3 or more energy, but Apeku can just sit on 2 and just play normally. You have absurd defensive tools, you have free negates here, you have blockers, you have the access to counter, you have all of the other things such as Nimbus, such as token negates. Apeku has all the defenses in the world. The problem is it's not the easiest to play. So on paper it's relatively easy. I think it has like an average high skill ceiling on paper, but to really master it, it's not the easiest deck to play. Like the skill ceiling just goes super high, especially if you're playing with only 2 energy strategy. So yeah, Apeku, worth considering. We also have a couple of yellow Saiyans here. So first one is Spirit Bomb. I love Spirit Bomb. You basically have Spirit Bomb as a field card, you charge it, and then you end the game with one massive swing. What do you get if you play Spirit Bomb? You get amazing draw power, especially if you play like the Polish Spice, then you get amazing draw power. You don't need to draw your win con. There are ways for you to not have it, though you really need to be super unfortunate to miss Spirit Bomb. You have access to yellow Saiyan stuff, so everything that cares about yellow Saiyans or yellow Goku or yellow Vegeta, you can use those cards, and there are a lot of amazing cards there. You have amazing Z leaders. There's multiple of them. One of them can just end the game on the spot, and you are deadly with counter. So you basically can combine your Z leader, your Spirit Bomb, and then just counter your opponent and win. However, there is one negative that I need to talk about, and that's there's gonna be a very small chance, a minuscule chance, that you will just auto lose on the event. There's a very small chance of this happening, and that's specifically if 2 things happen. First, both of your Spirit Bombs are unavailable, like you just can't get them on the field, which can happen. Or B, you run into the only, let's say 4 rounds in a row, you run into the only 4 green decks at the event, which are packing Tactical Victory Vegeta, who just blows up your field and then you auto lose. So there is a very, very small chance. This chance is practically non-existent, but there is a small chance. The last competitive deck is Majin Vegeta, the big, scary, graphic guy, from the data pie chart. Yeah, Majin Vegeta did exceptionally well long time ago, and then it topped only 2 events in BT23, but it's still a competitive choice. I believe that it's still better than Rogue choice. So what do you do with this one? You pressure your opponent with your cheap plays, and then you blow up the field when you need to do that. If you need to do that. That actually comes up really rare sometimes on the stream. I don't recall how many times we've actually seen Majin blow up the field. Anyway, what do you get with this one? You get amazing draw power because you're playing the Polish Spice in this one. You get a lot of cheap swings, like a lot of cheap swings in this deck. You have a bean effect on a leader, so you take a life and you bean yourself. You become 20k baseline on either player's turn, which is huge, especially because you want to go a bit down in life so that you can go into your Z leader later in the game. You have access to yellow Saiyan stuff, same as Spirit Bomb, and you have an insane Z leader. Like, you have an absolutely crazy Z leader. What's the problem with this one is, well, it's just basically that it lost a lot of power with the duo being limited to 1. Duo being up to 4 copies was huge for this deck, so it lost power with the duo limit, but that's kind of the only thing that it lost, so you can still work around that and still perform well with Majin. Finally, let's talk about Rogue leaders. Competitive but unorthodox choices. Let's start with one of my favorites again, Frieza Swap. Frieza Swap is really cool. It's a toolbox of cheap attackers and insane draw power. Yeah, you have a lot of cheap attackers due to swap. All of them have like some toolboxish options. One can blank cards by just shutting them down. One can remove things. 2 of them can actually remove. Then you have like one that buffs and generates Z energy, one that tutors. So it's a toolbox of cheap attackers and insane draw power. Frieza always has like 1/3 of his deck in hand. What do you get with Frieza Swap? You get amazing draw power. You get cheap and or free plays because Frieza discount swap, so you can really get into your big guys really fast and for really cheap. You get great Z energy generation because of the leader's auto and the auto of some other Friezas. You generate a lot of Z energy while comboing from top deck, so you're not losing cards in hand. You get an amazing Z leader. The Z leader is insane for this deck, but here are the issues. You can be easily interrupted. You can really be easily interrupted, especially now when the target for a swap that you show is the one that you're committing yourself to go into, and only one free drop has deflect, so you can get interrupted. And the other thing is Frieza heavily punishes misplays. So with this deck, the reason why I wouldn't take it, and I've heard some other players talk about this, like really good players, is that it's hard to not misplay with this one for like 8-9 rounds in a row. You need perfect concentration for this one later on in the game, because it is punishing when you play something wrong. And Frieza does so many things, there's so many triggers in this deck that it's easily to miss something and then you get punished for it. So yeah, other than that, it's a cool option. The second rogue option is Bardock BT18. This one is really cool. So it's an extremely aggressive board swarming yellow leader. What do you get with Bardock? You get great cycling ability. So you don't really draw as much as you play a card and then you draw. You're just cycling through your deck. Every card is dirt cheap to play, and Bardock has something huge going for it, which is 20k attackers with keywords. Why is this important? Because a lot of Z leaders in the meta are 20k baseline. So if you're swarming a 15k field, you basically need to sacrifice cards from hand to combo to get to their 20k threshold. Bardock doesn't have this problem. Almost all of his monkeys are 20k for 1 energy, and they either have dual attack or double strike, which is amazing. He has very good removal with his leader and with his monkeys. He has an amazing Z leader, which can catch you off guard if you forget that it exists. It has an amazing Z leader. However, he's not too difficult to interrupt. Nothing has any sort of protection in this deck. Nothing. So he's not too difficult to interrupt. And before we jump to the last section, I forgot to make a slide for Yellow Sin. But Yellow Sin is also a recommendation for Rogue. So where's Yellow Sin? You can go and play it. I just kind of forgot about it. Time to talk about some tech options. Get ready for difficult matchups. We'll go over these cards very briefly, so let's start with negates. These are your floodgates. You need your floodgates because we are currently in a very battle card aggro meta. Not so much of leader aggro or unison, but just battle cards. And yellow has ways of shutting that down. You have Flying Nimbus. Flying Nimbus is gonna be your best friend in the game. Trust me, if you're playing yellow, Flying Nimbus is your best friend. You have Mecha Freezer Robotic Riposte, which is falling off a bit, but it's still a staple floodgate. And finally you have Vegito, which is a counterplay, so you can sometimes catch your opponents off guard with this one. You also have some free negates, such as Metacooler and even Grandpa Gohan. Yeah, in Apeco, Grandpa Gohan is a free negate. In Apeco, Metacooler is also a free negate, so Apeco good deck. Anyway, yeah. So we'd argue that Nimbus is arguably, the best choice, and free negates don't hurt, so use them. Let's just briefly talk about some disruption tools. So Tyrannical Blow shuts down cards, amazing. Cooler counter, I win the game button a lot of times. Sin, the card that really doesn't need to exist, but it still does. Remove skills and do everything on the planet because it's a keyword soup, which also draws you a card. And lastly, Trunks the Cunning to ruin blue because you don't like blue. So there you go, you can ruin its existence. We have a lot of choices in yellow, but these are some of the most common tools. So if you're looking to build a toolbox of extra cards and battle cards, these are the ones that you want to look at. Before we end the video, let's quickly jump into the summary. Yellow is a great choice for nets. There's a lot of very viable yellow decks, even outside of our recommendations. For example, I forgot to recommend Yellow Sin. Yellow Sin is amazing. Flying Nimbus will be your best friend going forward. Flying Nimbus is your best friend. Just keep in mind that you can catch your opponent off guard and just use it on their leader swing, so they don't get the leader swing either, because Flying Nimbus only prevents battle cards, and then you can completely ruin their turn. Like, it's not even funny, it's actually pretty cruel. Non-aggro decks will perform well only if they can survive into the late game while clearing the board. This can be an issue. Some decks are running, for example, Trunks, SS Trunks Unison, which can just blow up the board after your opponent attacked with everything. It's gonna be difficult to survive if you're a non-aggro deck, but if you can do it, and yellow has a lot of tools to ensure that it gets there, you can pull off a win. Just keep that in mind. There's only one meta deck. If you ask me, there's only one meta deck, and that is U7 Goku, and it might be difficult to get it on time because of product allocations, and some places, just being some places, not gonna name drop, but yeah, it's gonna be difficult to get this. But you still have a lot of other viable options. Everything in the competitive bracket is very, very viable for the event. And I think that's about everything. That's it for the video. Let me know in the comments below, will you be playing yellow at Nats? If you will, which decks are you considering? I'm not expecting you to let everyone know like, hey guys, I'm playing this, but which decks are you considering? How do you feel about the current state of yellow? Let me know in the comments. I read all of your comments. I try to respond to everything. I really, really love our little community. And guys, by the way, we are on our way to 4K subs. And you can help us get there by hitting those like and subscribe buttons and sharing the video. Once we get there, I'm gonna give away a booster box. This has been Damien from the Lookout, and I'll see all of you in the next video.